So most rideshare drivers drive in hours at a time, or they may even go out and do a full day of driving. But what if you're the type of person who wants to pick up some Uber passengers on your way to or from work? Or if you want to pick up some passengers while you're running errands around town? Well, due to a couple recent changes that Uber's made to the driver app, you can actually do just that now, and you'd be surprised that you really won't go too far out of your way, and your hourly earnings will be probably a lot higher than you expect. So Harry here with the Rideshare Guy, and today we're going to talk about how much money you can make driving for Uber while you're commuting to or from work or running errands around town. So we've got a blog post on the rideshareguy.com where you can get a little more information on that. But today specifically, we're actually going to go over the spreadsheet that I created to track all of your rides. You can see how I did it, and then I'm also going to explain how you can go out and do it and recreate it. But if you don't want to, there's going to be plenty of tips and tricks and strategies in this so that you can sort of see just how much you can make and then go out there and try it for yourself. So Uber's actually had this feature called Destination Filter for a couple years now, and it's been very popular with drivers. It actually allows drivers to get rides headed in certain directions. They recently added another component called arrival times, and what the arrival times does is allow you, you might imagine, it allows you to set an arrival time. So with the combination of those two features, you can actually now set a destination and an arrival time, and you'll only get rides headed in that direction, and you really won't ever go too far out of your way. So you won't have to triple or quadruple your commute time. So it's very handy if you're sort of using it in this strategy. Now, over the past few months, what I've been doing is I've been tracking all of my rides when I'm going out and doing this commuting style, right? So if I work from home, so I don't get to commute to and from work every day, but when I'm driving around town here in Los Angeles, I've been tracking all this information. And today we're gonna actually go over that in that spreadsheet. And I'm also gonna show you how you can do the exact same thing with this spreadsheet that I'm gonna make available for you. And you can actually make a copy of it and download it and do it yourself. So during the course of this experiment, I actually ended up making 26 commutes over a 2 to 3 month period, and I matched with at least one rider headed in the same direction as me 17 times, and I earned about $117 after expenses, which isn't a huge amount. So the total earnings from this experiment weren't huge, but I did earn over $30 per hour if you averaged out all of my trips, which basically says that it really didn't take me a lot of time to do all those trips. I really didn't have to go too far out of my way or put extra miles on my car. So let's dive into the numbers in the spreadsheet right now and take a look. So you can see right here that I've got the blog post, but we're going to go straight to the spreadsheet, and I'll make sure to leave a link to that. We'll start off in the instructions because the first thing is if you guys are looking at my spreadsheet, you're going to need to add a copy of this spreadsheet into your Google Drive. So you want to go to, as the instructions say right here, File, and then make a copy. And then you can see right here that it's going to make a copy. You select the folder that you want and then say OK, and boom, that's it, right? So it's going to make a copy, and then you can actually now access that exact same spreadsheet. So I'm going to close that out for now, but now you'll own this file, right? Because obviously I'm not going to give you guys edit access, even though a lot of people I know will end up requesting it. You're not going to get edit access to this spreadsheet since this is public and everyone is going to be able to use it. So those are the quick directions. And then I also want to go over this summary tab because this explains my experiment. So you can see here, I've already got the summary and calculations tabs completely filled out, but we'll go over the summary template and calculations template, which you guys will actually be able to use and then fill out yourself if you're interested. So you can see that all of the blue cells are actually input. So this is all data that I've tracked, and I'll explain how to do this. And this is input from Uber in orange. So these are going to be cells where basically I input that data, but it's from Uber. And then same thing, blue again. And then yellow are actually calculation cells. So these will all automatically calculate. So let's start at the summary. And like I said, I had 26 total commutes. And so what that means is basically I sort of had the intention, okay, I'm going around the city and I want to see if I can get Uber passengers along the way. So that's what I counted as a commute, and that happened 26 times, and of those 26 times, I got at least one match 17 times, which is a pretty good match percentage. I mean, it's almost 2/3. So basically what this says is that I was matching with a rider almost, 2/3 of the time that I went out. And for me, I didn't go out at all during rush hour. I sort of went off during off peaks, so never during rush hour morning or afternoon commute, but sometimes in the middle of the day, sometimes in the evenings, and then weekends too. So that's how I did it. Your numbers might change a little depending on when you do it, but I don't think there'll be a huge variation. Now the total rides, so obviously sometimes when I went out and I matched with a passenger, sometimes I would get 2 rides, right? So sometimes I would get 1 match, finish that ride, and then get another before I reach my destination. That's all that this is saying. And then so the average rides per match commute, 1.4. So basically, you know, one time I would get 1 and then the next time I'd get 2. That's basically what that is saying. And the gross earnings of $127, like I said, it's not a ton of money, but these are all for trips that you're going to take anyway. So I feel like that's actually a pretty good number. And the interesting thing, I'll show you how to calculate your net earnings, because one thing I was really surprised by was that my net earnings were still super high, or, you know, basically my expenses were very low, right? So 117, basically it only cost me $10 in expenses. And I'll show you how to actually calculate that. And then average net earnings, basically what that is saying, on the times where I matched, I was making about $7. So basically whenever I matched, I was getting an average of $7. So, which I think is a pretty solid number. You know, it's not going to make you rich, but hey, a lot of these times I was on my way to lunch and I went and spent 10 or 15 bucks and that paid for half of my lunch and my gas. So that was pretty cool. And then the interesting thing here is that the average extra drive time was only about 13 minutes. So on all of my trips, it was only about 13 minutes. And you can see here on the calculations tab too that I believe I have the average. My average trip, basically my average commute around town was 30 minutes. And so I only went 12 minutes out of my way on average. So it basically only increased from 30 to 42 minutes. So instead of my normal average trip taking 30 minutes, it took 42 minutes, which is not a whole lot longer, right? And then the cool thing is my net hourly earnings was $32 per hour. And I bet that's a lot more than what most people are making. It's a lot more than what most Uber and Lyft drivers are making. Obviously, you can only scale this so much, but we're going to explain how you actually get to that number. So let's head over to the calculations tab. I'll go over a few of my numbers, and then I'm going to explain how you guys can actually go ahead and input this. And I'll share a couple examples too with actual numbers and data so that you can see on this template sheet. If you actually want to recreate this, I'll show you how to do it. So let's start in row 8 right here. And basically, like I said, so these are all inputs. So what this is saying is that on 8/25, I left, or basically my leaving time, and this, I put a little note here. When you leave your starting point, and you may want to turn your app on before this, though, to put you online waiting for requests. So basically what this means is this is when you're going to actually physically leave your house, right? Just like you would on a normal commute. But one little loophole that I found was, hey, if you're doing stuff around the house, maybe you're doing the dishes, or maybe you're, you know, cleaning up around the house a little, you can actually turn your app on 5 to 10 minutes before you're going to leave, and that gives you a better chance of getting that first match right from your house, right? So you sort of save yourself some time there and probably increase your chances of getting a match. You just have to really be able, hopefully your car is nearby and you can hustle down and get into the car so you can go do that ride. So this is saying that on 8/25, you know, I may have turned my app on a little early, but I actually left my house, and that could be because I got a ping or just because I had to leave at that time at 17:18, which is, you know, 5:18 p.m. Now, at that time, I put a little note right here. So you need to map it on Google Maps. This is how, you know, this is what I did basically. You guys don't have to do this, but you know, you need to map on Google Maps and basically notate the time and mileage that it's going to take to get to your final destination. So I basically, when I left at 5:18, wherever I was going, I mapped it on Google Maps to see how long it was going to take, and I put a little note here. This was rush hour traffic Friday afternoon, so I guess I did do some rush hour trips, and it said it was going to take 55 minutes to get to my final destination, and it was going to be 18.3 miles. I'll share some screenshots in a second so this is a little clearer, but I just want to give you guys a quick overview here. And then the arrival time at final destination, that's when I actually arrived. So that arrival time obviously will be leaving time plus drive time. If you don't get any match trips, that's basically what your arrival time will be. If not, your arrival time is going to be, you know, your time that you live plus the drive time plus any trips, however long it takes in between. And so then I put my total miles here to the 30.28 and how many trips I got with Uber and my earnings. So that's really how this all works. And you can see that I've got some calculations in here too. Basically what this is saying, the sum of all these is saying, you know, this is how long all of my drive time was. My average drive time was 30 minutes. So a lot of these numbers we've already actually gone over before. So I want to go into back to the directions now. I'm going to show you how you guys can actually enter this, and I've got a couple examples. So Let's say you want to use this spreadsheet and you want to figure out how much you can earn. You can actually go online with your driver app before you want to leave and set the destination or time. So just like I explained to you. And then, so let's go over these steps right here, right now. So if we go over to the calculations, I have an example right here. So on this one, I think I was actually headed to Hollywood Park. So you can see that I set my destination, and this happened on August. So this one happened on August 27th, and at 2:43, I basically set my destination, and you can see right here that basically where I was and everything, and then you set your arrival time. So at 2:44, it lets you set an arrival time of 3:30. So basically, I was somewhere near, where was I? I was near Santa Monica. You can see right here, and I was headed to Hollywood Park Casino, do a little gambling probably, and I wanted to get there by 3:30. So I set that on the arrival timer, and then you can see right here that I actually mapped it out. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and actually enter this. So it's 23 minutes and 11 miles. So I ended up, so what's the date here? So the date was 8/27, and I ended up actually leaving at 14:47, so that's 2:47, and then the drive time straight. So you can see right here, I put Google Maps told me 23 minutes and 11 miles. So we're going to enter that, and you have to enter it in this format, 023. 023, and obviously you can see that you have to enter these in the 24-hour format. And then the drive miles straight, it's at 11 miles, right? So let's just make sure that that looks right. Okay, so this says 2:45, but I actually left it 2:47, 2 minutes later. Drive time straight is 23 minutes. I have that there. 11 miles, that all matches up. And then when I actually arrived, you can see that it was just after 3:70, or I was very near the destination when it put me offline, and it was 3:17. And I'll show you the actual, because I did get a trip on this, and so I arrived at 3:17, so that's going to be what, 15:17. Let me make sure the math is right on that. 3:17, and then total miles was 14 miles. And so this is actually what you're going to get from your odometer, right? So once you leave your house, navigate to, we already went over that, reset your odometer, and then go out and do your rides. Once you arrive at the final destination, note the time and final odometer reading. So I don't have a screenshot of the time and final odometer reading, but I did have it marked down, and so I put, that's that step 5 right here. So step 5, once you arrive, you want to note the time and the odometer reading so that you can calculate that total miles, right? Because if you reset it, it should now be at 14. And if we go over here to my Uber pay statement, we can see on that Sunday, August 27th, I got a ride at 2:47 p.m. It was a pool ride. It was 5 minutes, 1.56 miles, and I made $3.64. So let's enter that information. So I got one trip, 364. So not a ton of money, right? But the cool thing that you'll see right here, and real quick, the cost per mile, I actually have another spreadsheet that you can go and calculate your cost per mile to operate your vehicle, or you can probably just use around 20 to 40 cents per mile, depending on how economic your vehicle is. So if you're interested in that, you can go check that out. But for now, we'll ignore that. And then this all automatically calculates. So this is basically your extra miles. So this is going to take whatever your total mile is and minus your drive miles, right? And basically what that is saying is that your original trip would have taken you 11 miles, but since you got this extra Uber trip, you went a total of 14 miles. So that extra miles, basically what I do is I multiply that by the cost per mile and then subtract it from the earnings. So $3 times 21 cents is 63 cents, and you can see 364 minus 63 cents is $3.01. So this actually won't end up being super important, because one thing that I found is you really actually won't go too far out of your way. So that miles, sort of the adjusted earnings is going to be very close to your overall gross earnings. And you can it's almost negligible, so you can sort of ignore it. Now, the cool thing is that my extra drive time was only 7 minutes, right? So originally it was going to take me 23 minutes, but since I got this extra trip, it was only 7 minutes extra. And what that means is even though I only made $3 in 7 minutes, my hourly earnings, right, if you sort of average it to hourly, it's $31.20, or if you adjust it, it's $25.80. And the cool thing on this ride, if I double check, because I do have this in the spreadsheet, so let's make sure this all lines up, 827, this ride right here, 827, and 25.80, 31.20, that lines up. I also got a $2 cash tip on this ride. So I didn't even count that, but you can imagine that that would actually bump up your earnings, right? If you were at, instead, you were at $5, it would bump it up, your hourly earnings to 42. So I'll take that off for now. So that's one example that you can use. Now let's go back to this other one that I messed up earlier. So on this day, so this was actually November 8th, and I was at home near Beverly Hills, and I had a meeting at Pelican Hill. And so you can see that at 9:26 a.m., that's when I mapped it, and it said it was going to take an hour and 25 minutes and 58 miles. So let's go ahead and actually put that in. So this is going to be 11:08 and 9:26 since it was a.m. And then the drive time it told me was, let's pull that back up, what did it say? Okay, so the drive time that it said, hour 25 and 58 minutes. So I'm going to enter 1:25, and you can see that it adjusts right there, and 58 miles. And then as for arrival time at my final destination, we can see right here. So this is when I actually arrived, and along the way I did get a trip here. So you can see right there, it's a little small, but you can see that the total trip took me an hour and 40 minutes. And so basically what that is saying that is I went 15 more minutes out of my way, right? And then the total miles was 58 miles. I think it was just over. So I put 58.1 just to make the calculation. So what this is actually saying, and I'll double check it with my data here from November 8th. So you can see 11:06, so that was my arrival time, and I'll just put that in real quick, 11:06. So basically what this is saying is that I really, even though I actually got one trip on this, and I'll show you real quick, I got one trip right here, 9:21 a.m. UberX. It was 34 minutes, 58 seconds, and 13 miles, and I made $14 on this one. So this was pretty good, and it was literally right along my destination. So this was sort of like the perfect one to get. I mean, it would have been nice, obviously, if it was longer, but it was really the perfect one to get. So that was pretty cool. And also the miles, so the miles that I went out of my way, the extra miles, is super low right here. And so you can probably imagine that this is going to be a pretty good number over hourly earnings. And so you can see my adjusted hourly earnings on this were actually $56.40. So that's pretty cool. And basically, you can sort of see that what happened in that scenario is that I had this nice long hour-and-a-half trip, and it only ended up adding just about 15 minutes extra to my drive, but I made $15, which is, about $1 a minute. And that's why my average hourly earnings were close to $60 an hour. So that's definitely kind of the cool situation. And so that's sort of what I found is when you're going for a little bit of those longer trips, you have the potential to actually, really cash in and make some good money. So that's really how all of this works. And you guys can actually, so if this was you would be filling in all of this information. And there is a little bit, quite a bit of work, you have to do, and it takes a little bit get a hang of going through these directions. But most important is, so you want to go online with your driver app, set that destination and time, and then once you leave your house, navigate to the final destination and take a screenshot right there, because that'll tell you the time, and it'll also tell you how long it would have taken you if you just drove straight. You can also reset your odometer, and then you go out, do your rides, if you get any, of course, and then once you arrive at the final destination, just note the time and the final odometer reading, and that'll actually give you all of the data you need to be able to fill this out. And you can then kind of come here, and you can see here, if you guys are filling this calculation template table out, which I'll go ahead and clear all this now for you, then you can see on the summary, okay, so you had 2 total commutes, you matched both times, your match rate is 100%, you did 2 total rides, and then your average rides per match commute was 1. So let's say on this trip you got 2 trips, for $7 each, and your earnings were $14. Now it's going to say your total rides is 3, and obviously your average rides per match commute, since you got 1 once and 2 the other time, is going to be 1.5. So that's a little bit about how that works. And then you can also see that it's going to go ahead and automatically calculate. So if you guys want to use this spreadsheet, all you really need to do is go through and put your data in here, or you can just take a look at what I've already calculated, because this was a lot of work, and sort of use that to your advantage, because I definitely have some good tips over here in my article, sort of what I learned and kind of how you guys can actually take advantage of it. One thing to mention, the quest bonus. So, you can see here that if you're in a week where you did a bunch of trips and you're getting closer to a quest bonus and you have that available in your city, maybe it's 10 to 20 trips, you'll actually get a bonus on top of that. I already mentioned how you should go online before you need to leave. And with pool riders, there's some work that goes into that, because one pool rider is actually good in this case, since you're sort of headed to your direction, but two might actually be bad. And one little trick that I found too is a couple times I actually stopped along my trip and did errands, and I filled up gas, I dropped a few things off, and what that does is actually give you a better chance of matching. And then of course, with this strategy and using the destination filter, you really want to avoid backtracking. And I would say especially, you can do it on side streets. Sometimes Uber will give you a request that's behind you, but going forward, and that's okay. But on the freeway, you never want to get off and have to turn around on the freeway, or get off and on to the other direction. So definitely some good tips here. If you guys do have any questions, I'll be available in the comments, since I know that there was a lot of information here. But as you can see, sort of in summary, I did this experiment over the course of a few months, and the net, or sort of gross earnings, the highline number may not make it, super impressive, but when you think about it on that hourly basis, it did work out pretty well. So if you're in an area where, let's say you have a 30 to 60 minute commute every single day, you can definitely use a strategy like this, and I wouldn't be surprised if you were able to earn a little bit more on a gross average, and you'll still be able to hit that high hourly earnings average just from doing this, sort of on the commutes that you're going to make anyway. So definitely a cool strategy, and maybe not something that Uber and Lyft drivers are going to go out and use every day, but on those times when you're commuting to or from work, or for those drivers that have other jobs, especially day jobs maybe, or even if you're just someone who kind of wants to drive around the city and get paid for the errands that you're going to do already, this definitely works. So if you guys have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. We release new videos every single Tuesday and Thursday. I know this was kind of a long one, so if you made it with me all the way to the end, thank you very much. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. All right, stay safe out there.